Well, happy Saturday to you. Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. My name is Kevin Olenek. You can like the Hockey Podcast on Facebook. You can follow the Hockey Podcast on podcast_hockey on Twitter. You can follow me at KVULE, Sean at Beardy Canuck 03, Chris at SCHNIDZ, and Tyler at T Noble, and Heidi at Hyde Amazeballs. But Tyler and Heidi are not with us today, but we will be hearing from Heidi in a different way a little bit later on. But Sean is with us. Hello, Sean.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good, thanks. And you?
Good. I feel kind of normal that I have my MacBook and working normally now. I feel like a human being again. And Chris is with us. Hello.
Hello.
How are things? How's Bowie?
Pretty good, and Bowie's doing well. He's a little nuisance, as most kittens are.
Yes. And how is Hannah doing?
She is doing well. She's recovering well from her surgery.
Yeah, good to hear. Now, Sean, as I said, Tyler and Heidi are not with us, but Sean has brought in his brother. Sean, maybe you can introduce him.
My brother is Devin. He is a two-time Max Midget tournament hockey player. He may have been suspended out of one of those tournaments for a little bit, but he can tell you the details on that. And he's a big Flames and Leafs fan, which I don't quite understand still, even in my 30s. But he is here to join us, and he's excited to talk hockey.
Hello, Devin.
Hello. Happy to be here, guys.
All right. Now, well, I have to before we dig into this a little bit more. How is one brother a Canucks fan and one brother a Flames fan?
Well, I started out as a Leafs fan growing up. One of my friends was, or I guess more so Sean's friend was a Leafs fan and still is, but so I kind of piggybacked on him. And of course, growing up in Calgary, I have to be a Flames fan as well.
Okay, so for the Leafs fan, I have to do this. I don't know. I had to do it. I'm sorry, but other than that, it's fine. We'll dig into the Flames in a little bit here. There is actually lots to talk about with the Calgary Flames, lots to talk about the Canucks. But you may have heard at the intro that we have a Facebook page and a Twitter page. So we're normally we've been doing Agree or Disagree, the podcast hockey edition. We are moving strictly to this portion of this is moving into its own platform. So we're going to encourage you to follow podcast_hockey on Twitter and like the Facebook page, the Hockey Podcast. Now, it does have an ugly mug on it now, which is my mug. We are in the midst of making some changes and switches to that. We are in the midst of creating a website as well. We're switching. My old WordPress site will be becoming the Hockey Podcast website. So we're in the midst of fixing all of that and redesigning that, and we will have a Patreon account and things like that. So we're continuing the midst of transition and change. But the big thing is follow on Facebook, follow on Twitter as well. And also to give credit, Sean, who again is this band that has played our intro music? Sean? Did Sean leave? Oh, everyone's on mute. Lodgepole Kind is...
Sorry about that. Lodgepole Kind. He's Devin and my brother-in-law.
Okay, cool. All right. So now we got all that out of the way. Let's get into some of the news of the week. And a man returned from Minnesota. A man was going to go to Minnesota and fly and pick him up if he had to. But a man has returned from Minnesota. Brock Boeser signed his contract on Monday. He is expected to be on a line today in the exhibition game at Salt Lake City against the LA Kings with Elias Pettersson. First of all, let's start with the actual contract. Was it a good deal? Was it a bad deal? Or is this a wait-and-see deal?
It is a good deal. The Canucks didn't have the cap space to go long-term with him. Plus, I don't think they really wanted to go super long-term at the number that Boeser was asking for, which I think would have been up over $7.5 to $8 million. And just with 3 years at under $6 million, gives him 3 years to show that he's worth it, but gives the Canucks some cap flexibility going forwards.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of a mixture of a show-me deal as well as a good deal. I think both sides are kind of happy with how it turned out.
Devin, what are your thoughts as an outsider looking in?
As an outsider, I think it's a great deal for Boeser and the Canucks. It's very heavy on the signing bonus. First 2 years, 3.3 for the first year, and $3 million for the signing bonus for the next year. I think overall, it is a show me deal, but gives a little bit both a bit of a flexibility for Boeser's next contract too.
Right, and it does add some help in terms of other things as well, with what you're going to have to do to sign Quinn Hughes, what you're going to have to do to sign Pettersson. I mean, we're already talking about re-signing Quinn Hughes to a contract, and he has played 3 NHL games. That's kind of crazy to me, but anyway, but that's the world we live in. Signing Pettersson, what you're going to do with Markstrom and some other people as well. So, it does set them up in good shape going forward. And I think in a lot of ways, very innovative. We've talked a lot on this podcast, and Canucks Twitter has talked about this, and the Canuck fan base has talked about how seemingly uninnovative Jim Benning is. But I think that there was some creativity here, and I think Benning deserves some credit for how he handled this as well. Thoughts?
Yeah, he had a little bit of a he was a little bit of a pickle just because of the way the salary cap didn't go up as much as we originally expected. Then throw in the Luongo cap recapture. And then he went out and signed a few players and put the Canucks up close to the cap. But I think he did some good work here to get Boeser signed to a friendly deal for at least 3 years, and to continue to move the youth movement forward with the Canucks. And we'll see how they go forward this year and how much more progress they can make between now and when Boeser's contract is up in 3 years.
And timing-wise, it works out for Boeser's bridge contract ending, because that's also when Luongo's recapture penalty ends, Eriksson's contract ends, as well as Roussel and Beagle's contract ends.
Yeah.
It'll free up a lot of money.
Yeah. You get to do a lot of different things there for sure. So in terms of Canucks training camp, we did see a split squad game. They played the Oilers on Thursday. In terms of that, what has impressed you? What has caught your eye? Maybe some players or some things you've noticed as well. I did put players, but I think some things you're noticing as well from the Canucks.
The pairing of Miller and Horvat are looking good. I like the chemistry they're showing. I think they're going to be a very key component for the Canucks if they want to take that next step and be a playoff contending team, because they need that scoring depth, and they needed to give Bo Horvat some wingers to work with, other than basically the helicopter wingers that he had over the past couple of years. Just kept on rotating, and they were more sort of third and fourth line players as opposed to proper top six players. So I think that's a very very key pairing for the Canucks to build around for that second line.
And all the hoopla surrounding Virtanen showing up to camp a little overweight or whatever appears to not be a huge issue, because he got 2 big goals and ended up winning one of those split squad games earlier in the week.
To counter that, when we'll get into this, was that an NHL goalie? I'm sorry, I had to. Those were bad goals. Right, Deb?
That is a fair point.
Not to dismiss what Virtanen did, because you're right, but I had to make that point. Devin, what have you watching the Canucks Flames split squad games? Did you see anything on that perspective that you were like, wow, that's going to be a challenge for the Flames?
Well, one of the bubble players, Biega, he had a couple good rushes there. He showed a lot of speed, a lot of poise, and I think he has a chance to make the team. But I don't know, overall, it just, coming from a Calgary Flames perspective, I am nervous with all the changes that you guys have made in the offseason, with Ferland and Miller coming on. It's going to be a challenge for the Western Conference. I think you guys are going to be a dark horse, and training camp has kind of shown that.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. A guy I'm starting to like a bit defensively is Brogan Rafferty. I think has made a pretty good impression. Now, I'm not sure if he is going to make the team, but he might have put himself in a position to be at least a top 1 or 2 call-up if needed on defense for the Canucks. Am I off base there? Or?
Well, he got sent down today, but he is definitely as probably one of the, I would say the top right shot call up going into the season. I think it's either him or Jalen Chatfield, but I think Brogan Rafferty's past Chatfield in the depth chart at this point. Going back to Biega, I think he's going to be the 7th defenseman, because I think the top 6 is set with the Canucks at this point, because you're going to have tonight. There looks like they're showcasing the top 4. The top two pairings with Myers and Edler, and then Hughes and Tanev, and then with that, the third pairing looks like it's going to be Ben and Stetcher. So I think your Biega and Fantenberg are battling it out for that 7th defenseman spot, but I think they're going to go with Biega because they know what he can do, and they know he can slot in and be a good puck moving defenseman, despite his stick being way too long for that. I just can't get over that. Every time I watch him rush up the ice with the puck, it's just too far out. There's like I'm just waiting for him to lose the possession of it and then control the puck because of how long his stick is.
You're kind of sounding a little bit like Torch talking about Willie Mitchell's stick there, Sean.
I was at that game when Mitchell came out with the extra long stick. It was quite hilarious.
What about Nikolai Goldobin? What are we... Go ahead.
I think he's shown well. It looks like he's bought into, and again, that if you go back and listen to what Travis Green has said, the key phrase for the Canucks this year is buy-in, and I think Goldobin's bought in. I think he's shown that he's willing to go back and be a 200-foot player while still being a smart, a good offensive threat. So I think he's going to get a shot with Miller and Horvat as well as Berchi, and it looks like they've decided to, instead of because beginning of the summer they were talking about Tanner Pearson being that pairing with Bo Horvat, but I think they're going to try and move Pearson down into that third line with Brandon Sutter as the center and try and build that third line around those two. So I think you're going to see Berchi and Goldobin sort of get the bulk of the looks on that Miller Horvat line.
Chris, what have you thought?
Yeah, I don't disagree with what Sean just said. I quite frankly, not really much to add. I'm happy with how the lines seem to be kind of working out so far throughout the preseason, and I'm excited about watching it throughout the regular season.
And the final one I wanted to get to in terms of where we're at with the Canucks here is Olli Juolevi was another one that was sent down. I don't think that that's really a surprise, but I also think that there's going to be some fans that are like, "Oh, good God, this is a bust again." Are you still on the wait and see with Olli Juolevi?
I am because I want to see what he looks like fully healthy, and he's still recovering from that knee surgery, and it takes a while to recover from that. I don't think you can really put any heavy expectations on him until you actually see what he looks like playing heavy minutes down in Utica this year, and
until then, I think wait and see is the best approach. But we all know that's not how hockey fans work, and we want just a big. We want to make that big definitive statement. Unfortunately, but I think wait and see is the best approach with Hugh Levy, at least for this season.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some fans that are going to claim that he's a bust since he still hasn't cracked the team yet, but I'm in agreement with Sean. I honestly think that he hasn't really had a true opportunity to kind of showcase himself professionally in North America yet. Now that he's coming off of this injury and the surgery and whatnot, hopefully he'll have an actual opportunity to showcase himself this season down in Utica.
Devin, what do you think?
Well, it's hard to from a Calgary Flames perspective. Tkachuk was taken in that draft and showing how well he has done. It's hard not to have expectations of him, but you need to give him time. You need to give him. There's nothing wrong with keeping him down in the AHL to develop. There's multiple cases of good defensemen that come out, in their mid-20s, even late 20s, or even, as far as Calgary Flames captain goes, Gio. He's amazing and he's in his early 30s. So it's, I just give him time and just over-ripen him. Do the whole Detroit model of keep him down there until he's actually ready, and just let him be down there. I mean, don't overreact over the fact that he's not playing heavy minutes in the NHL or he's not being an impact player. I think Sean said it best. He hasn't really had a full season yet to really show what he can do, and I think once that pressure comes off of him, or once fans are able to let him just be and just develop, then I think you could see him as a maybe even second line pairing defenseman. Just give him time.
Yeah. Is there anything else in Canucks training camp that you're looking at that with the next few games here that you want to see or in need of seeing? Or
I can't wait to see the new look power play with once they put everyone together, and that top unit that it looks like they're going to have Boeser and Pettersson in the one-timer spots. They are giving it to Hughes to quarterback at the top of the umbrella, and then they've decided to give JT Miller and Josh Levo a look down low. I really think that could be a very a good power play, and then they're looking at a little more balance because 2 years ago they got a decent amount of goals from both power play units, which was why they were so successful on the power play a couple years ago. And then last year they didn't get anything from the second unit because they loaded up the first unit. So with the second unit, it looks like it's going to be a Bo Horvat in one shooting spot, Tyler Myers in the other, Edler at the top. And then you're going to have sounds like Ferland's going to get the bumper spot up front, and then I believe it's I can't remember who's going to get the net front down low, but it looks like they're going to mix things up and try and get a little more balance on the power play, and I'm very curious to see how that works.
Yeah, I'm excited for the power play unit as well. But beyond that, I'm just excited to see the final team once we get into the regular season.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to kind of see the full pairs and see what everything kind of looks like too. And sort of, if you're going Miller, I'm interested. Probably Devin is too a little bit. I'm intrigued what Michael Ferland is going to bring to the Pettersson-Boeser line, because I do think that there are some good things that Ferland can bring, but I'm also going to be intrigued. One of the things that is going to intrigue me the more I think about it is Ferland and Green's relationship, because there are times that Michael Ferland has disappeared and has been inconsistent, and I'm really going to be interested to see if that happens, how him and Travis Green get along. Because he is a bit of a streaky player. Devin will probably agree with me on that. I don't know.
100%.
And I'm just going to be interested in seeing how that's going to work. a bit.
Well, as long as he continues to just go into the corners, dig the puck out, and be in front of the net, I don't see why he would have any issues with Travis Green, because as I said before, and what Travis Green has mentioned multiple times, is buy-in. And if he buys into that's what his role is on that line, I think the points will come, no matter how streaky he can be. But he'll still be someone useful to both Boeser and Pettersson, even if he's not putting up the points. As long as he plays that physical game and is willing to get into the dirty areas and just create space for Boeser and Pettersson to work.
Basically be a Burrows type player, but with a little bit more physicality to protect Pettersson and Boeser if they ever get bullied.
Fair. Devin, what do you think?
Well, he is streaky, going back to, but I mean, like, he can take over games if he wants to. I mean, you guys saw it in the playoffs there with the whole Ferkland gate of Bieksa, but the thing is that I don't think he can do it for 82 games. The style of play that he's able to do is just it's rough, get in the corners, get nitty gritty, and get to the front of net and just get the puck to I guess on his line with Pettersson and Boeser. I'm really interested to see how he's grown up, I think, and I think he's matured a lot since he was in Calgary playing. You saw it last year in Carolina, and I think he's understanding what he needs to do on a day in, day out basis, and I think he's going to do really well for Vancouver. And like I said before, it's just that you guys are scary. How what you guys have done in the off season and adding him, I think he'll be a really good top line forward for you, if not top six.
Yeah, for sure. So Devin, you're leading me to it's admitted that probably the Canucks have had a really good offseason. They brought in some players. They look a lot stronger. But in terms of how did you feel about the Flames offseason?
Flames off season was mediocre, but I think it was also the RFAs that really kind of had everybody up in the air of what's going on, and we are very we're like there was almost a trade with Kadri coming in from Toronto for Jankowski and Brody allegedly, but it kind of. I'm really curious to see exactly what happens here in the next couple of days, or I guess a week and a half before the regular season starts, because Tkachuk's holding everything up. I mean, we only have about $6 million in cap space, and the only way that he'll be able to sign is if he does a similar deal to Boeser. But I don't think that's what he wants. $5.875 million for 3 years. I don't think he's wanting to do that. I think with the track record of that family, because Keith Tkachuk, he had a couple of holdouts and or contract disputes, not holding out. But yeah, I don't know. It's with the way that we're structured right now, I think Brad Treliving had a hard time, making stuff happen, because Frolik wants out. That was made very apparent by his agent last year, and I think once Tkachuk signs or they come to a conclusion there, then you might be able to see a couple trades here and there. But yeah, it's just a wait and see game with Tkachuk right now.
So are you of the mind that you think Tkachuk signs before the season starts, or this is something that is going to happen during the regular season?
I think he's holding out. I don't think there's unless Treliving can create some sort of cap space, I think he's holding out. I don't think he's going to sign before October 2nd.
So you think it's going to be another Nylander-esque situation?
I don't think it's going to go that far. I think it's going to get done probably at the end of October. I think each party is going to see exactly how well Calgary's going to do within the first couple of games, the first couple of weeks, and then because that'll give leverage to either side. If Calgary does well, then that gives Tree Living more of an edge to, push Tkachuk to sign. But if it goes the other way, then Tkachuk has the upper hand.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you want to. I mean, obviously, for all all of these RFAs, and we'll dig into that a little bit later. But all the RFAs, I think you want to sign this up. I'm just pulling up the schedule here. For the first month of the season. I mean, obviously, there's Colorado to start, which I don't think is going to be an easy. That obviously is not going to be an easy game. But sorry. Great podcasting when pulling this up, but I mean, I think the Flames, as much as we've talked about the Canucks needing to get off to a good start, the Flames really need to too, like every team does. We got Colorado, home to Vancouver, home to the Kings, in Dallas, in Vegas. Now there is realistically possibility that the Flames could start 1-4 before they play the Sharks in San Jose. One potentially could start 1-5 without Tkachuk. I think that's, and I don't think you want to do. I certainly don't think you want to do that. But so I would think that you've got to get this fixed as soon as possible. In my mind, I mean, to me, the only for sure winnable game that I see there is the Kings. I could be wrong if someone sees something different. Colorado is a tough game. Dallas is a tough game. Vegas is a tough game. But although they may start off slow, and Vancouver, I think, is going to be quite motivated. So there's a potential here to start 2-4, 1-5, something like that, which I don't think you want to get off to that start, especially after the playoff you had.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be that with that first 5 games, it's going to really show what kind of balls we have. But like looking at the training camp, two players have really stepped out to me. Is Alan Quine and Dylan Dubé. Dubé, he looks flawless up on that top line. Sean and I were at the game on Wednesday or Thursday, whenever that was. And watching him, he can fly. It's just whether or not he can, obviously first game last year, Branson took his head off with a huge hit, and then he was actually injured from that play, but he didn't say anything until later on. But anyways, I think he'll have a big impact on making the lineup. And then Alan Quine, I think he's very quietly going through the training camp, and I think he's really impressed me at the games that I've watched. So if Tkachuk doesn't sign, I think that it'll be, obviously he's a great player and we want him here, but I think that, I think we have players in line to kind of step in and hopefully, able to bridge that gap until we can sign Tkachuk if he does decide to sign.
What if, and for all of you that went, what did you think of Lucic?
He's slow. He seems to be a half step behind. When he gets there and he can get into the grind, he's good. But he's a step behind. I just don't see him being someone who's going to be able to be too really, really effective in whatever role they decide to play him on, which is what he looks like in Edmonton. So nothing's really changed from last year.
Yeah, the game Sean and I went to on the Monday for the split squad game, he had a couple of chances where he kind of whiffed on it. So I don't really, not say I'm that impressed, but I also was kind of amused at the fact that trade happened to begin with. So.
Yeah, Lucic, I don't know. It's not regular season yet. It's still preseason. I don't know. I don't really take too much stock into that. I mean, watching even just Evander Kane, he was not noticeable whatsoever because his give a shit meter right now is probably so small, along with Lucic. They probably want to just get their timing down right. So I'm not taking too much stock into how he's looked. I don't know. I think listening to Bill Peter, he was on the Fan 960, and he was saying that he might even have a look on the top line when regular season comes around. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how he kind of fits in within our system. I'm not putting too much stock into it, but he will have a better impact in the role that we need him to be than Neil did, because Neil did sweet nothing last year. So I think he'll fit in well.
Okay. The goaltending. I made a crack about Talbot. But the deeper concern here is, and I'm pretty convinced, I'm expecting at some point during this recording, we're going to hear an announcement about John Gillies not being on the team. So what happens if Rittich and Talbot go down? Or one of them go down? Rittich played okay yesterday he was fine against Edmonton. He only faced 4 shots on Monday, so it's really hard to evaluate Rittich. Talbot struggled against Vancouver, and Gillies has struggled both games to the point that I don't think I think he knows he's gone. But what happens if Rittich and Talbot go down?
If Rittich and Talbot go down, we don't have much. Parsons, he's still a decently high prospect. He's had some mental issues and has had some injuries, so he hasn't had the full AHL experience, professional experience that he needs to have to become an NHL goaltender. But what's really promising is Zagadulin. We signed him out of the KHL, and he's looked flawless. I'm pretty sure he hasn't let a goal in the preseason at all yet, and he's looked steady. He's looked solid, especially coming from the transition from the KHL to the NHL. That's a huge difference, and he seems like he's, as of right now, a good fit in if Talbot and Rittich go down. But otherwise, I think we'll have to look into getting somebody else.
Sean, Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, Zagadulin has looked good for the Flames so far. I think he's probably your best bet at this point for the number 3. But that could change. As Devin was saying, like Parsons, I think this is a bit of a make or break year for Tyler Parsons, and there was a couple articles about what he was doing for training this summer to try and get back, because he was a very highly touted goaltender prospect for the first couple of years after his draft, and he just hasn't really progressed more. But that just continues to show how weird goalies are, and as much as the NHL has progressed in figuring out the scouting of skaters, I think the scouting of goaltending has really stagnated, and we're only just starting to see them get back and focusing on that a little bit more again to see how these guys are. What to look for in a goalie when they're in their teenage years, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how who ends up being that number 3 goalie for the Flames if and when they need to be called up. But I think right now it's Zagadulin, and then Parsons will have to fight his way back up into that spot.
Admittedly, I don't really know too much about the Flames depth chart in terms of their goalies, but I kind of questioned the whole Smith-Talbot trade, because I don't really have a whole lot of faith in Talbot. I actually kind of am more partial to Smith, if I'm being fully honest. And obviously Smith had his consistency issues in Calgary, but that trade obviously happened for a reason, and they're hoping for the best with Talbot, I'm guessing.
I think part of that was they were hoping they want to give Rittich more of the starting role, I believe, and I don't think Smith was wanting that. I think Smith is going to get a lot more games than in Edmonton than he was going to get in Calgary, and Talbot is a little more of a quiet guy, so he's not going to get upset if when he knows that he's more the 1B or even the backup to David Rittich.
That's fair. I totally didn't even think about it might actually be a Rittich promotion sort of angle on it.
Well, Rittich has had a good last couple seasons. Each season he's progressed, and his numbers have gotten better. His home record was ridiculous last year. I don't have it on me, but I remember looking at it, and it was just, I think it was like 23-7-2 or something like that, right? I don't know. I'm just throwing numbers out there. But just for the record, it wasn't a trade. It was they signed both goalies. Both of them were UFAs. And, yeah, I just thought I'd put that in there.
I stand corrected.
I understood what you meant, though, in terms of, because it is a trade-off, I guess, if a way to word that is a trade-off as well. But I also, this is other than Mika Kiprusoff, the Flames goaltending and Flames fans have had a real love-hate relationship. And I really don't know how much longer Mike Smith could have survived here anyway. I mean, even when he played well, the fans weren't necessarily on with him. And when he made a mistake, and he made one of the more embarrassing gaffes was the Iginla retirement game, they just didn't connect with him. They didn't seem to like him. Maybe there's more to this, but it just felt like the Flame fan base wasn't really enamored with Mike Smith. And I do think that had something to play with it. I don't think it was the only thing, for sure, but I do think it has something to play with it.
I think it had to do with the fact that we, as a fan base, really wanted to see more of Riddick than Smith. Just because, I think everybody loved or wanted to see more British starts. But having Smith as a veteran, I think they didn't want to piss him off too much. But yes, he was inconsistent, but him and Sam Bennett were the best players in the playoffs last year. You can't argue against that, because it was right there. You saw it. And, Calgary just hid. But I think having that veteran presence in Edmonton for Smith is going to be big. I think he's going to bring a big presence in that locker room. He will ruffle feathers, because in every interview that he had that he played like shit, he didn't say that it was his fault. He always blamed, the team, and the team wasn't doing well. And I think that's what rubbed the fans the wrong way too.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Smith was completely innocent in this, because he certainly wasn't. But I certainly don't think that there was a certain love-hate relationship with the fan base and Mike Smith. Tobias Rieder. Go ahead.
To go back to Devin's thoughts on the home split, it's quite interesting. I pulled it up. In 21 games, David Rittich had 13 wins and 2 losses, and then 4 overtime games. So he got the job done and won. But his save percentage in those games was an .885. So it wasn't pretty, but he got the job done at home. When you compare that to his road stats, where he was 14, 7, and 1, but he had a .932 save percentage. It's quite mind blowing looking at that. How weird the save percentage is completely off, even though he only lost 2 outright games at home.
Yeah, a little baffling, to be honest.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I'm okay with Rittich, but I feel like in some ways I think the fan base has overrated him a little bit. I know he's a really lovable guy, but I'm a little bit skeptical of that. But we're gonna have to see. I think Talbot will have to play well. He didn't get off to a great start, but again, it's preseason and he's just trying to get his game together. So we'll give him that. What about Tobias Rieder?
Rieder, I don't know if he'll make the team, to be honest. I think we have a lot of contracts, and we still have Tkachuk to sign, and even doing a base salary for an NHLer, adding another contract is just, it doesn't make sense to me. Last year was probably an outlier of getting 0 goals and then getting shit on by the GM. Or I guess that'd be the owner up there in Edmonton. But I don't know. I just don't see it. He's played decent. He's fast. Yeah, everybody knows that. But I don't know. I just don't see a spot for him when you have Alan Quine, Dubé, and Mangiapane taking a step forward.
Sean, Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with Devin. I think he's on the PTO, so he's got to outplay those three players amongst others to make the team. And I don't, as good as he's looked, I don't think he's done that. And then with the cap crunch that the Flames are in, and still needing to sign Tkachuk, I just don't see them wanting to add another player to that and more salary to that problem. So I think what we're going to see is I think the Flames are going to actually move players out. Just like the Canucks, both teams are in very similar situations where they've got a bit of a cap crunch that they need to, and a player number crunch that they need to alleviate before the season starts or before the season gets too deep, so that they can have some cap flexibility later on in the season. So I think more often than not, more likely than not, I think we'll see the Flames move players out as opposed to signing another player here.
Like, he had a good fitness result, but I haven't really heard too many rumblings about him outside of that. But I also don't pay super close attention to the Flames PR staff, so I don't really have a huge opinion on Reeder either here or there.
Well, I think Smith Pelly has jumped out to me more so than Reeder. He has that, because Tree Living, he values size. He's been looking for size for years, and I would say that Smith Pelly has the upper hand over Reeder.
Interesting. Okay. That'll be interesting going forward because, I mean, Smith Pelly's played a lot, so... Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I think one might make it. It's going to be hard for all of them. I don't expect Zach Ronaldo is going to make the team, although he made a nice play yesterday. I don't expect that, but I agree with you about Reeder. But I do think maybe you're right. Maybe Smith Pelly does bring an asset that they don't have, and I think that was one of Treleaven's argument was bring a guy in that they don't know or that they don't bring. If one of these guys can bring something that they don't have, and that's Smith Pelly certainly does that, for sure.
And I really want to say, please, Brad, do not sign Ronaldo.
Oh, yeah,
please.
No. Yeah, no, there's no need, like, not in this day and age, yeah.
He's such a rat, and not in a good way.
Yeah, no.
And you already have one in Tkachuk.
Yeah. Ooh, shots fired. Yeah, so this is going to be interesting to see where the Flames go from here. They got a couple games against Winnipeg coming up here, so that will be their Heritage Classic opponent, so that will be interesting going forward. Before we get to Heidi's hard-hitting question with Sean, the RFA situation, of course, Marner has signed. Boeser is off the board. But we've talked about Tkachuk. Some interesting signing. Thomas Chabot signed for 8 times 8 to make him not RFA next year. Signed in Ottawa. And I don't know how is Eugene Melnyk going to pay Thomas Chabot? Does anybody know? Is that through the Mafia? Or is that... Sorry.
I'm not too sure, but with his gambling debt that's being reported, I really don't know how he's supposed to be paying them.
Yeah, that's why I was suggesting maybe it was the Mafia or Guido or, like, I don't... How is he doing that? Anyway.
Maybe some IOUs, like in Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah, there we go. But what are we sensing? What are we seeing? What is kind of jumping out at you at this point? One of them that jumped out to me is Mikko Rantanen comparing himself to Mitch Marner, which I think drew some ire, but it's an interesting point. But what are kind of some of the things that just jumping out at you guys?
Well, I think that's a fair comparison, honestly. Like, you look at the points that Rantanen put up last year, I think he deserves to get paid just as much as Mitch Marner if that's what the market is now. So I think as well as Braden Point, I think both those guys are right in that wheelhouse, and I think that's one of the things that is holding up Colorado, because they've got a bit of a they don't want to pay Rantanen too much more than they're paying Nathan McKinnon, even though Nathan McKinnon came off like a 40 or 50 point season when he signed that $6.5 million deal 2-3 years ago. So I don't know if they can figure they can get Rantanen signed for much less than what Marner signed for once they sit down and actually strike a deal.
When I first heard about it, I wasn't sure if the Marner comparison was really accurate, but looking back at his stats, like, he's definitely in that area. It's just I'm not sure if he's as on this, like, the exact same tier as Marner. I think he maybe have benefited just from being on that top line in Colorado to a degree, but by all means, like, he's still a really good player.
Yeah, I think it's a fair comparison. Watching Marner as much as I did last year, and seeing Rantanen, mostly in the playoffs. I didn't watch too much Colorado games, but Sean made a good point. You know, their points are comparable. Yeah, I think that. But the one thing that I think is very an important thing to say is that Joe Sakic, he will wait. 100% he will wait. And look at the Duchesne trade. He waited, and, you know, people wrote him off saying, like, he's waiting too long. And he's very patient and methodical in what he does. And I think, you know, as far as Joe Sakic goes, I think he'll wait till the bitter end. He'll make Rantanen sweat until he gets what he wants, because you do have McKinnon coming up soon. Makar is going to be a big signing. And when Samuel Girard, when his contract comes up too, like, he'll get paid not as much as the other two, but, you know, he's got to look into the future to see where his cap's going to be in a couple of years. And from what I hear, the cap's going to stay stagnant for the next 2 or 3 years. And, you know, I think Joe Sakic's going to come out as the winner on that contract.
Yeah, it's interesting in terms of that long-term kind of battle that that's going to happen there too, for sure. That I would agree that I think Rantanen is in the Marner camp. I think Braden Point is too. Rantanen didn't only play with McKinnon, because he was on other lines as well. So certainly to me, I think it is a fair comparison. But I think it kind of shocks people because we don't pay that much attention to Rantanen as much as we do to Marner in our markets, obviously, for obvious reasons. But I think that's a fair comparison, and I think for Braden Point as well. But I do agree with you. I think Sakic is going to wait this out, and he's shown some patience in terms of how he handled Matt Duchene. He waited as long as he possibly could and got a great deal out of it. So you're right. I do see that. What about the Clayton Keller deal? What is that? What's striking you? Is that something that is relevant in all of this conversation?
Oh, it's very similar to the Thomas Chabot deal in that they see a player that they value and see his ceiling. He's not nearly as good as Chabot, but they just want to lock him up long term, and that's kind of what Arizona has done though since the last couple of years. They've gone and locked their young core players up long term, whether they're overpaid or not. They're trying to do that so that they can build something and build a young core that they can keep there, because they know that it may not be a fully a big hockey destination, even though it's a really nice place to live.
Like, I knew Clayton Keller was going to get a promotion. I just wasn't sure it was going to be that big. But if Arizona thinks he's worth it, that's on them.
Yeah, I think that I think it's a good contract to sign. I think who's that GM down there? What's his name?
Chaika.
Chaika. I think he is seeing what's happening with this RFA class, and I don't think he wants anything close to happen. You know, the less drama there is around your team and around your star players or potential star players, the better. I think him signing that and the Chabot signing, I think, are massive. They're betting on their potential, and in a couple of years, you know, it could be a great deal for Chaika and Arizona at 7.15. I think it's fantastic, and of course, like, young guys, you know, especially only being second, or I guess going on their second and third years in the league, I don't know if they're betting on themselves, but they're also looking at the money being, and Chabot being 80, or what is it? Yeah. whatever the Shabbat deal is, they're looking at a lot of money, and I think that's really enticing for them. And also, once again, looking at the RFAs and how things are going this year, I don't think either team or player want to go down the road.
I just double checked. Shabbat is officially 8x8.
8x8. There you go. Yeah. So what is that? $64 million.
Yeah.
Like, offering that to a young adult, man. If I got offered that, sign right now. Let's do it.
Even if it's a dumpster fire like Ottawa, or a perceived dumpster fire like Ottawa.
In hockey, they're guaranteed contracts, though, so
that's true.
He talks.
Yeah, that's true. He's still going to get paid no matter if it's Ottawa or Timbuktu. That's a good point.
Totally, and it is Ottawa, and so if Shabbat, burns into flames, it's like, oh well, it's just Ottawa.
Yeah.
And even if he's good enough, you can request a trade, and he doesn't have with these RFA deals. They don't have no movement clauses or anything. They'll be able to move him quite easily if he's good enough too. Like, good defensemen are you need to pay. You need to have good defensemen to be good in this league, and $8 million in 2-3 years is not going to be that detrimental for a team to acquire for a top pair defenseman, or even a top pair defenseman like Thomas Chabot has shown to be.
Yeah. It's going to be. It's interesting. It will be certainly interesting. What's happening going forward? What did you, Devin? What were your thoughts on the Marner signing?
As much slack as Dubas got, I thought it was a fair deal. Like, what are you going to do? You have you drafted well. You won the Matthews sweepstakes, and I don't know. Like, what? My question to all the haters is, like, what would you do? You're gonna let one of your best players, like the top scorer on your team, sit? No, of course not. You're gonna give him what he wants. That's why he didn't sign Nylander right away, because he knew that they could possibly bridge that gap until he got signed. And I don't know. I love it. I think it's great. In a couple of years, that after the U.S. TV deal goes through and they re-sign that contract, I think it's going to be a great deal. He drives play. He's your number one power play. The power play is run through him on the number one power play. As far as he isn't a Matthews, no, and that's the money that he wanted. But I think overall, it's a great trade, or a great signing.
My question for Devin, though, is how do you like having 3 of the top 7 biggest contracts in the league and also having literally $0 in salary cap space?
You know what? It's kind of like the Kawhi Leonard situation. Let's just worry about this year. This year is probably one of the best years that we will, best chances that we'll have to, contend for a cup or, make a good push. Going forward, it's going to look it is a little dicey, but I was looking at the cap last night. You have Spezza, Ceci, Barry, Marincin, Hall, Dermott, Shore, Mikhayan, the Russian that came over, and Hutchinson. They're all off the books next year. The major people you want to re-sign is Dermott. He's going to be a great player. We could do a bridge deal at $4 or $5 million for him, and then re-sign Muzzin or Bear. We're not going to get both, but I mean the overpay on CC of $4.5 million, I think that was probably one of the stupidest things that he's done. But I mean all that combined, all those players combined, is going to be $13.4 million off your books next year, and I think you'll be able to sign. At least Barry, I don't know. Probably not Barry. Barry's going to be asking for at least $9 million, I think. You can get Muzzin on a decent deal, I think. But I don't know. I'm not overly concerned on what we're going to be doing and going forward. We have a really good farm system. You have Sandin, you have Liljegren, you have Jeremy Bracco that's going to be coming up, and I mean, we have when is it? Anderson? He's up in 2 years. And then you have Riley up in 3 years, and Trevor Moore. Those are the three players that are really coming up that are going to be, really pushing the cap, if you will, for us trying to get them signed. But I mean, you can always trade Nylander. He's a great, looking at his contract now. Yeah, last year was a bit of a shit show for him, but he didn't have a full year, and I think he'll have a bounce back year. So he'll have some sort of cachet in the trade market. Who wouldn't want a Nylander, really? He's a great player, but I'm not, as far as going forward. Like Dubas is banking on our prospects and our draft picks that we've acquired, and I don't know. I'm overly not concerned about it all.
So fair to say that the Leafs are all in on like a 1 to 3 year must win the cup in this window sort of phase right now.
100%. Anderson, he has this year, next year, and then he's done. And I can almost guarantee you that we're not going to sign him. But we do have a prospect, Wool, and we just drafted Ian Scott this year or last year, and he's an upcoming prospect. But goalies can be a crapshoot. You never know exactly what's going to happen. But I don't know. I think we have a good shot this year, and it's a whole Quiet Leonard thing. If you bring a championship to Toronto, I mean, they're legends for life. Period.
So, do you think at this point they've done enough to get past Boston?
That old question. I don't know. To be honest. I'm interested to see how Chara looks this year, because he's a big part of that blue line. Same with Bergeron. Bergeron's up there too in age, but he'll still be. Both those players will still produce, but not as much. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see, because each year is different. You have the Panthers. They made some big moves this year. You're looking at New Jersey. I know that's not the Atlantic, that's Metropolitan, but coming out of the East, there's a lot of good teams that are still there. I mean, I never count on Pittsburgh. So what I'm getting at is that Boston, yeah, they're going to be there, but I think Montreal is a dark horse too. Having a healthy Shea Weber for the entire year, I think, is going to be massive. And I mean, Carey Price is still, in my mind, the best goaltender in the world. So I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see how everything shakes out. But and I mean, obviously Tampa Bay. How can you not forget about Tampa? They're gonna. I think they're still going to dominate, but I think they took a hard pill by getting bounced in 4 by Columbus. Like that doesn't go away. And yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be very interesting.
Yeah, and it is fascinating. But I mean, the bridge that and there was the Raptor bridge was LeBron. And LeBron moved on, but the Leaf bridge is Boston. Like they haven't been able to get by them. They've taken them close, but they haven't been able to win that fourth game yet. So that's why I asked that bridge, because I still think, yeah, you're right. I agree with you. There's a lot of other teams that are comparable, but to me, I don't see it not being a Toronto-Boston first round matchup. At this point, I'm 70% certain I have Toronto and Boston in the first round. Book it
I'm really hoping for that 30%, but I think you're right.
They just need to not fall apart in that third period of Game 7.
Yeah.
Well, even Game 6. I mean, Anderson, he did not do well in that Game 6. That Game 6 was atrocious for him, and then if you go into Game 7, you have a whole bunch of players that your leadership group hasn't gone through the ringer of it all. They haven't had that adversity before, and it's whether or not they can step up in the big game situations. I've no doubt that we're going to make the playoffs, but it's just getting past that first round. Even if it isn't against Boston, I think that first round monkey on their back is going to be there, because even what was it, 3 years ago was Ovi. Couldn't get past Capitals, and it's. I think that's always been. It will be there until they are able to have enough poise to get past it all.
Well, to be fair, that Leafs team was kind of brand new to playoffs, and anything that you got out of that was gravy at that point. I mean, Washington was favored to win massively, so the fact that went 6, I think, was a benefit for the Leafs in a lot of ways. But, I mean, the Bruins have been the organization's Achilles heel. But I see what you're saying.
Well, just like the Vancouver Canucks versus Chicago, slay that dragon.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Well, Heidi's not here, but Heidi has given Sean, I have no idea what this question is, but Sean does. It is time for, let me do this in radio's voice, Heidi's hard-hitting question with Sean. So, Sean, take it away.
All right. So, the question today for this week is, what can the average male hockey fan do to make hockey and hockey fandom more welcoming and tolerable for female fans? It's hard hitting, isn't it?
That's
So
Heidi, why did Heidi just come walk and just punch us all in the gut? Like, what was the difference?
I'll volunteer to go first. I honestly just think that one of the things that we can do is to not make a snide comment about it just their favorite player being based off of looks, because that is a line that a lot of dudes tend to go to, which I think is frankly bullshit.
I honestly, I'm sorry, Sean. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's no issue with that either, because if you ask a guy who watches tennis, what's the first thing that usually comes to mind is which tennis player is the best looking, right? So there's nothing wrong with that, but doesn't mean you can't be a good hockey fan, because everyone's gonna have their fandom be driven by other things or how they get pulled into it, but doesn't mean they're still not as hardcore as other people and other genders or other cultures. And I think that's just one thing. It's just be accepting of who they are, and don't like Chris said, don't make a snide comment about them.
Yeah, well, I mean, I love Brock Boeser because he's a man rocket. I mean, look at that flow. Are you kidding me? Like, come on. But I don't know. Like, I think I didn't think it was a big issue, to be honest. That question really caught me off guard. I don't know if I have an answer to that, to be honest. But I never thought of it as being an issue. I'm surrounded by in my own life, like, women who are knowledgeable and know about hockey. Like my girlfriend, she knows a decent amount of hockey, and so I talk hockey with her all the time. So I didn't think it was an issue.
I just think there's just certain people who feel that they're superior with being a male hockey fan over.
They just basically let tradition and history trump everything else.
Yeah, I just think it's just treat everyone the same. Like, if you there's amazing people, amazing women out there doing amazing work in terms of pushing the boundaries on analytics and scouting. Rachel Dory is someone who I think people need to pay attention to and read what she writes and listen to what she says, because she knows what she's talking about, and she's been around in NHL organizations. She worked for the New Jersey Devils for a season, and she's written for The Athletic, and she's now just got hired on for elite prospects as well. So there's too many. Just people just need to realize that they're the same as you, and men need to realize that they're the same as you, and you just need to just treat them the same, and don't try and be the know-it-all. I think that's what it really comes down to, is don't try and be the know-it-all and explain something when they aren't asking for it to be explained to them.
Oh, 100%. Sean, Heidi, and
Kevin?
I went to went to the Flames game, and her and I had a great conversation. Look at Andy Petrillo. She's the host of Leafs Lunch. And Kristen Anderson is one of the reporters here in Calgary. I mean, I've zero problems with women being involved with it. More the merrier. Let's just talk hockey. Hockey's hockey. It doesn't matter the gender.
Yeah, Tori Peterson as well, with CalgaryFlames.com. I agree with most everything that has been said. I don't know if I have anything specific to add. But for me, just, I think just I think one of the things that is a good reminder is, in my class anyway, I think there is at least 3 females in my class that play hockey. So, and I'm pretty convinced that they play hockey 10 times better than I do. So, I agree with everything. I mean, it's a punch in the gut that Heidi has to ask this question. I think that to me is the problem. But I think I agree with you guys. I think treat people with respect and dignity. And I think from a media perspective, I think in a bigger picture, I wish that there were more, other than Andy Petrillo. There is one sports host out of all of Canada, if I'm correct here, that is actually hosting a radio show. And I just think that we need to allow that voice to be amplified, and stop not only mansplaining in person, but really stop mansplaining on Twitter as well, because that's the worst. And I've seen a few females get mansplained, and it's just really, dumb. Anyway, but I don't know if I have added anything of really relevance to that. I think what you guys have said is great.
I just want to give a shout out to NBC for bringing on.
Thanks, Heidi, for punching us in the gut.
Yeah. Sorry, Chris, what were you saying?
I just also wanted to give NBC some props for hiring Schofield onto their broadcasting team.
She went with the Sharks, did she not?
Yeah, but it's through
NBC Sports.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and Sportsnet has Carolyn Cameron host once in a while. I mean, they have Cassie Campbell, Pascal doing some of the Flames games on weekends when Kelly Rudy isn't there. I mean, there is some progress, but I also think that there's room for growth too.
For sure.
Yeah.
I just wanted to give an American company some credit, because I feel like we're a little bit ahead of the curve as far as Canadian companies hiring women in hockey.
See, I think we're behind. I don't think we're in any. I wouldn't say behind America, but I think we have some work to do.
There's improvement that could be done on all sides. I agree.
Yeah. Is there anything else we want to talk about? Did I forget anything?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. I almost called you Gord because of your Twitter account, but Devin, I appreciate you coming on. You're welcome to come on again. Are you active on Twitter?
I'm trying to be. I have 2 followers, so and Sean being one of them.
I think I followed you, so now you have 4.
Yes.
I also followed as well today.
Yeah. See, so 5.
Beautiful. Yes, I'm very active on Twitter. Whenever I'll retweet all the main guys, Bob and Elliot Friedman, and I really don't have much to say. I'll just usually retweet, but yeah, I'm pretty active.
Okay. Sean, of course, you're at where?
I am Beardy Canucks 03 on Twitter.
Chris?
I am at Schneidz, SCHNEIDZ.
Okay. And Tyler is at T-Noble. Heidi, who did want to talk about how awesome she was, and we did not even mention that. So Heidi is awesome. So we did cover that. That's fair. Not as long as she probably wants to. But Heidi Amazeballs. Follow at KVOLE, and again, follow podcast_hockey and we're in the midst of fixing that. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks guys for coming on, and we will talk to you all soon. Bye for now.